All right, time is short, so let's get started right away. Thank you all for coming, both online and face-to-face. My name is Tyler Okamoto. I'm the acting head of the business school. Welcome to this session on educating UQ students for leadership capability. This particular panel is a little bit different, and I'll explain that in a minute, but I did want to start by finding the clicker and acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we're meeting today, the Yagar and Turrbal people. Pay our respects to their elders, past and present, and extend those respects to their descendants as well, who continue cultural and spiritual connections to our country. I also want to give a bit of a plug for those in the room and able to move around. In an hour's time, there is a cultural capability development session that some of our discussants are participating in. If that's your shtick, I encourage you to come along to that as well and learn about indigenization. Now, our panel today is a bit of a different format. Rather than us lecturers getting up and telling you about our experiences, we thought who better to tell you about how things are happening in UQ than our students, most of whom are graduating. We won't tell you why the last one is not graduating. We have a Liveris Scholar students joining us today, who are some of our top scholarship students from across the university. They have particular training in the leadership space, which gives them a perfect lens for reflecting on the leadership capability as it's being developed by our course coordinators and our programs across the university. And so we're going to tap into their learned knowledge over the last 3 years on how we do it at UQ, and hopefully a little bit of tidbits thinking about how we can do it better, and thinking about where it is that we do this excellent. Following that, we're going to have some discussants who will draw out some of the learnings from our conversation, first in the leadership angle, so thinking about it from a leadership theory standpoint, and second from a pedagogical angle, so thinking about it, how we can embed it within our curriculum. Now, this session came about because we looked at the graduate attributes and thought, you know, actually, when you put all these together in terms of synergy, this actually really is about leadership. You know, when we're developing change makers, when we're developing leaders of the future, really, it's all encompassing in terms of those graduate attributes, which is why we thought, given this year's theme of synergy, it would be a perfect time to try this format. All right. So how we're going to do it? First, Director of the Liveris Academy, Professor Tim Costell, is going to give us a brief overview about what Liveris is, and then introduce our panelists today. We will then go to our discussants. If you have any questions or comments that you would like us to, time allowing, pick up in the last 15 minutes of the session, please use the QR code on the slide here to go onto the Padlet and leave your thoughts. We'll then have a look at the Padlet towards the end and pull out some of the themes and ask some questions. Right? Please don't use the chat function in Zoom. Please use the Padlet because we only have one facilitator helping us rather than two. So thank you for that. Without further ado, Tim.
Well, we're somewhat in shot, I guess.
Yes.
So the Liveris Academy was founded in 2019 on the back of a gift from Andrew Liveris, who's a UQ alumni and had been the CEO of Dow Chemical for 14 years. He retired. He and his wife, Paula, made a gift to establish the Liveris Academy itself. The purpose of it is that he looked at his experiences going straight from UQ, full career in one company, eventually becoming CEO, and realized that he felt a little underprepared from his time as an chemical engineering student to be ready to move into those leadership positions. And so he wanted the academy to take students, scholars that have an interest in sustainability and to work with them as they're going through their undergraduate career to try to help to develop innovation and leadership capacity. So we've had a program of activities which are going to change quite radically from next year on, but we've had a program of activities that everyone's been participating in while they've been Academy Scholars. And so that's basically the background of how we ended up here. So as Tyler mentioned, there are things happening within the academy extracurricularly that are designed to help develop those capacities. But those are also things that people, lessons and ideas that they learn and apply across their whole set of experiences. And so we'll probably draw. So I think that's probably enough in terms of context. So the scholars that we have today, starting from this end, the first one up is Sandy Kalulalagi. Next is Amber Spurway, Nelson Pritchard, Jessica Forbes, Jesse, and Kyle Steensma. And they've been with the Academy for varying amounts of time and have had different experiences. I know that Sandy and Amber were with us in 2020, which was both really peculiar, but also pretty cool with a lot of things that happened. And then the others came in from 2021. And so we've had kind of varying experiences across that period of time. So I think with that, I'll pass it to Tyler and we can start hearing about it.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Tim. So we thought we'd open with just an understanding of where you came to learn leadership. Now, this could be within the UQ context, or it could have been something that you experienced prior to UQ. Sandy, do you want to kick us off?
So in terms of how I learned leadership, I think it's just throughout my schooling. So since primary school, high school, and in uni, I've just sort of volunteered to do extracurricular things, like in primary school, just little things like student council. And then I think those kind of like leadership attributes like follow on through to high school. So I wanted to do similar things in high school. And then in uni, I didn't want to stop doing leadership extracurriculars. So I signed up to like clubs and societies and got really involved in the women in engineering program. So I think volunteering for extracurriculars has been the main thing.
And when you had those experiences in high school, did they talk about it formally as part of some formal training, or is it really just putting you in the situations and letting you learn yourself?
It's really not advertised as leadership. I think it's just like getting involved with the school. Mm-hmm. That's what they say. But what you're doing is like leading a team and leading your students, like leading the other students.
Yeah. Thanks. Amber?
Yeah, I definitely have to agree that school was a big one. I was really lucky. I've always gone to really good schools that put a big emphasis on, even if it wasn't directly in the context of, oh, we're teaching leadership, put a big emphasis on teaching interpersonal skills like communication, working with different people, looking at things from different perspectives. So yeah, I think that's a big one. And then also, I guess my family, like my parents have always been really good role models for leadership. I've got 2 younger sisters, so I kind of took it as my birthright to boss them around a bit. And I guess
bossing is not leadership, Amber.
Exactly. Well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
I think my parents kind of instilled in me from a young age that if you want to get people to do something, you can't just tell them what to do. There's more to it than that. So I guess that was kind of an early lesson that through school I've developed a bit.
All right, thanks. Nelson?
Yeah, exactly. Through parents and school, I think are the main parts. For me personally, it was my mum. She was probably my first kind of role model and leader, and she always pushed me to do the little extra things that are not they're not formal processes that are there, but that go the extra mile and improve outcomes for people around you. So in school, that was like just organizing different things. I remember we organized a school trip to New York to do the United Nations Security Council, and we participated in that. And so just doing like little things that are not the normal, but trying to find the people who are willing to kind of bet on you, and then you can make a better change within the people you're around. And I think that's a very important thing. And I've always been quite grateful to have those people that say, yeah, okay, let's make this change, and accepted that.
All right, great. Jesse?
I think my mum has always been very supportive of going the extra mile and having a go with trying to become a leader. I remember, if we throw it way back, when I was young, we just immigrated from England, actually, when I was 10 years old. And obviously that was a very scary experience. I was in a new place, and they had the school captain leadership sort of race going on, high drama for a 10-year-old. And my mum said, oh, give it a go. And I remember actually speaking in the one-on-one interviews, and I had said to the principal at the time, I think I just have the heart for it because I didn't actually know, too much about the school. I'd only been there for a year. He didn't know me personally. But I think it was just knowing that I wanted to have a go. I saw value in giving my time for something, and that's as these guys all do, and that's something my mum had instilled in me from a young age. And I ended up being lucky enough to get that, and obviously had no idea, no formal training at all. But I think starting with that, the moral want to give your time and do something for other people. And then, similarly to these guys, extracurriculars. And I did my Duke of Edinburgh, which again, my British mother said was an imperative. I had to do that through high school. And none of my friends really did. So there's something nice about being in the Liveris Academy where everyone else is sort of willing to give their time in that way too.
Yeah, thanks. Kyle?
Yeah, I think I have a bit of a different take on this question to everyone
Please.
else. So in high school, I was not a very proactive kid. I didn't do too much extra stuff except for, I don't know, I did a bunch of music. Didn't really poke my head out into much leadership activities. So the way I came to learn about leadership was after high school. I took a gap year and I worked at Big W for a year. And at some point I graduated from the checkout person to the night shift person. And I saw a change in like my manager through that. And I guess the way that I came to learn through leadership and like the first kind of awakening of how I saw leadership was just as a team member, seeing the difference that a leader can make to the way that I feel. Because the manager that I had wouldn't just like stand around and tell us what to do. He would be there in the aisles, opening the boxes and putting the stuff on the shelves with us. And he'd be, buying us pizzas and stuff, and just making us generally kind of want to be there and want to do right by the company just because it was right by him. And from that experience, that kind of like, that was my first kind of awakening of how I saw leadership. And then, after my first year of uni, I went on a trip to Cambodia with Engineers Without Borders, and we had 3 women who were like very experienced humanitarian engineers, and their mentorship and leadership of us through that trip was just like incredible. They were so knowledgeable, and they were also so guiding, and just really great mentor figures. And so from the feeling that I was able to experience of what a difference that a leader can make, that kind of made me want to create that feeling in others. And that's how I came to view leadership as well.
Yeah, thank you, Kyle. And it does raise a kind of a follow-up question for me in terms of thinking about your broader student cohorts that you work with in your classroom projects and whatnot. Do you get the sense that your experiences are similar to or different than what everyone else is? Given that you're all scholarship students, there's probably a good likelihood that your leadership ability is something that helps you get that scholarship. So when we think about broader development of leadership at UQ, reflecting on other students, have they had those same opportunities and experiences?
I guess since I have the mic, I can go first. I'd say there's a lot of opportunities to lead around UQ, if you're so inclined. Especially just clubs and societies offer a great opportunity for just any student. But I guess, the privilege that we have of being accepted into the Liveris Academy is we are able to have our heads in big world issues on a weekly basis and be exposed to things that leadership on a global scale, I suppose, to keep those issues front of mind, and raise the ambition bar as well. But I guess that's my first thoughts on that.
All right, thanks. Jesse?
I was going to say, I think now would be the time to mention privilege from a broader sense as well. I think I'm very lucky that I've had 2 parents who have been encouraging me every step of the way from when I was a young child to engage in extracurriculars, and they've been able to take care of everything that would allow me to do so. And I think not everyone is so lucky to have those opportunities, particularly people who are living out of home, or who have maybe come to Australia by themselves and really have to take care of all of the other worries that I have some more assistance with. And I think some of us are in the same boat.
Yeah.
So I think that making leadership accessible and something that people who are time poor have the opportunity to engage in as well, whether that's taking on a smaller role or doing a short-term experience, as opposed to maybe a year-long commitment that might take up too much mental space for some people. It could be quite helpful in making sure everyone has the opportunity to lead.
Yeah, thanks, Jesse. It's a really important point as the university tries to deliver on the Queensland commitments, recognizing the reality that 80+% of our students also work, that those considerations are really, really important. And so when we're thinking about leadership, we need to recognize that there are different constraints and different experiences in the students that we're working with. What about you, Nelson? Any experiences with leadership at UQ?
Yeah, like the point that I would like to make there, especially if you're like a lecturer or you're working in the administrative side, is kind of there's rules, there's a program that's designed, but kind of have a bit of an open mind of how that could go and how, if you're delivering to students, of course you get the CCAT feedback and stuff like that, but how could you actually make that go the extra way and really involve the students into it, how to make it fun, interesting. I think that's really important. And also just allow maybe for those, if you see a few students that are a bit more interested, a bit more within the subject and they really enjoy it, that maybe reach out to them, go and get a coffee with them, see if you have an RA position or something like that. I've definitely really enjoyed lecturers who've done that, who've gone to the extra mile and they've made their classes really enjoyable. You learn significantly more. It's funner for them, funner for you. Everyone, it's kind of a win-win, but also it allows those little more informal opportunities to occur. But to Jesse's point, it's very important that those more informal opportunities can be result in some type of nepotism or people who can take up those opportunities and not working full-time jobs and study full-time. So it's kind of, how do you get a balance where you can pick out those people to improve their leadership and really have a strong impact within your course, within your faculty, but also ensuring that you're enabling everyone to be able to participate in that in some capacity. That's like kind of a bit of two problems to deal with. And so sometimes it's important to make it a bit more formalized in some courses. That's what like quite successful lecturers do, is they try to make the leadership component more formalized in the course. And sometimes that can work. Sometimes it can be a bit too like someone's hitting you on the back. You got to do this, and so it doesn't really come across as it's intended. But I think those attempts are good, and then you can iterate and improve from there. But yeah, just trying to really think critically about, okay, how can I pick those few people that have that bit extra time and energy, but then also enable everyone to uptake some type of experience. If they don't have the time to be an RA, that's okay. But what else can I do so that they can develop these capabilities to be a successful leader and have an impact?
Yeah, thanks, Nelson. Amber, any particular experiences?
Yeah, I guess I can speak I do chemical engineering.
Yeah.
So speaking from a chemical engineering perspective, we do a lot of group projects. Like I'm doing 3 courses a semester. All 3 have big group project components within them. It's been kind of like that the whole way through. And I guess, at the start it felt a bit painful, but it has actually been really useful. And what's kind of cool is Chem Eng is quite a small cohort. So the people that I worked with in group projects in year 1, I'm now getting to work with again in 4th year, and watching how everyone's kind of developed. The teams feel a lot more functional, because everyone's got a lot more experience in communication, organizing, how can we play to our own strengths within a team. So I think that's been a really big thing, is that allows people to kind of develop their leadership capability if they're more into that. But it also, if you're not a natural born leader, if it's not what you're into, it allows you to also work on your own skills of communication, time management, that sort of thing, which are important leadership skills, and which, yeah, you can use in other contexts as well.
Okay. And in those group projects, have you ever had course coordinators or lecturers talk about the roles that people are playing within that group context, or is that something that is often just let go?
Yeah, there is a bit. There's a lot of team projects I do. They encourage you to do a team charter at the start, where you'll talk through what are our goals as a team, what roles are we all going to play. I think it's been encouraged that we all think about it. Often what I find in practice is that everyone just ends up kind of doing everything. There's not like one clear leader. And I think partially it's people feel uncomfortable going, oh, I'm going to be the leader of this team. Everyone wants to do kind of a shared leadership thing. But it has been talked about, and there's the quiz, I can't remember what it's called, and you take the quiz and it tells you whether you're a director or a time manager or, you know, that sort of thing.
Yeah,
So
that one's copyrighted. So let's
yeah. Well, there's
yeah.
that quiz that you do, and I guess that's how they kind of spark you thinking about that is, okay, what sort of role do you like to fit into a team, and how can we kind of make sure that you, play to your strengths and that we play to the strengths of the team.
That's the Belbin team roles inventory that she's referring to. So just be careful about the copyright there. Right? Yeah, thanks, Amber. Sandy, anything?
Yeah, I was going to say the exact same thing as Amber. I'm doing electrical engineering, so I've also had a lot of group projects and some really hard ones as well. And what I was going to add was that as opposed to having the team charter and sort of electing one leader, I think a better approach that I've noticed in getting everyone in the group to sort of do some leadership is when the project is pretty hard, everyone just wants to get it done. So people start learning leadership qualities like delegating tasks and communicating effectively. So not saying you should make the assignments harder, but I'm saying the way that I've seen people develop these qualities is when something is difficult, you want to get it done properly. So you're kind of thrown in the deep end to like get it done.
That's really insightful. I mean, one of the things that I've always struggled with as an educator is finding that balance between enough clarity to know what you're doing in the project and enough ambiguity to allow autonomous thought, autonomous direction. So it's an interesting point.
Yeah, and one more thing is a lot of the projects have been very like open-ended sometimes, and that like develops a lot of leadership skills as well, because you have to sort of sit down and brainstorm, and then some people start taking leadership roles, like being the one to like collate everyone's answers and things like that. So
yeah, it's a good thought, and probably something that should be scaffolded into too, rather than just throwing first years into the deep end and saying do whatever you want.
And first year was really hard, I think.
yes, thanks. So my next question is you know, many of you have had those initial early leadership experiences and opportunities. How has your understanding of leadership continued to develop in your time at UQ? What are those other experiences, and has that changed your view on what leadership is? Jessie wants to start. She's had three espressos this morning, so.
Oh, told you not to tell anyone that. No, that just sparked an idea for me. I had what I don't know if everyone would consider a leadership opportunity per se, but something that I found really helpful was a student-staff partnership. And I think Nelson was speaking earlier about, ways to engage students that are maybe off the sort of common route of just being an executive member or something like that. I had a tutor actually reach out to me in third year while I was studying journalism, saying that he was doing a photojournalism project and needed someone to assist with bringing together this exhibition. And it was for Hummingbird House, which is a children's hospice. So it was a very emotionally sort of draining, but also enlightening and incredible project to do for 6 months. And I got to get to know this tutor really, really well. And I think recognizing that for tutors and professors that are in a position where, their careers have taken off and they're comfortable in a position after, many years, compared to the confusion and worry that sometimes comes with being a young student and a soon to be graduate. And I think, extending a hand and giving someone a leg up to get that experience can also help them later lead in their field or go out into the world, into that position with some more confidence. So that was really beneficial. And I thought just one quick thing on the question before, if that's okay. One thing that I would urge, just being mindful of the audience of, professors and people who have some sway in this space, is being very supportive of the associated student societies. I think I've found like I've been a part of the sociology community and the journalism society in various roles throughout my time at uni. And it has been surprisingly difficult to get support from professors, sending emails that go unanswered, or asking to speak on the first week of classes, particularly for first years, try to spark their interest. And it can be very difficult to get people to say yes or to be as supportive as possible. And I think the student societies pull off some really amazing, interesting events. I think just being able to promote and champion the societies that are most closely related to your degree and really encourage as many people who are in that degree to go along and have a go would be great, especially when there's so many students who are disengaged sometimes, just want to go to class and leave, would need that extra encouragement.
Yeah, it's a useful point, and kind of reminds me that opportunities for leadership development don't necessarily sit at the course level. They sit at the program level, and they sit at the school level, even the faculty level, in whether or not decision makers are enabling those sorts of opportunities. Yeah, great thought. Thanks. Awesome.
Yeah, I think in my kind of learning about leadership, I've also realized that everyone is a leader and a follower at the same time. And following effectively is probably sometimes just as important, if not more important, than being an effective leader. So when let's say you're in middle management and you're a lecturer, right? You have people above you, people below you. Sometimes you come across some shady stuff or some things that maybe not shady, but they're just not the right thing to do, right? And it's due to a bit of like laziness or sometimes incompetence. And I think having the ability to, as a follower, to go, okay, this is not right, and seeing, okay, how can I've identified some level of what's called like destructive leadership. How can what should I do with my fellow people that are on my level to be able to ensure that those people, who is that leader who is engaging in some type of destructive leadership, that they ever change their behavior, they leave their position or whatnot. And that I think is a very important skill. And while we can like try and develop leadership throughout, and that's very important, what's probably worse than having average leaders that are not very effective is having bad leaders that are very effective at making change. No, but it's true. It happens quite a bit. And it's having very courageous followers that can like step up and go, hey, I think here you're going a little bit off track. Let's kind of move it back here, is a very important skill to have, and probably a skill that is a bit easier to apply to a larger range of people. So it's like in the group projects, or even the way that like courses are engaged and like getting feedback and that sort of thing, and kind of getting people to think critically about the situation they're in and getting out of this kind of group think, oh, this is just how it is, I continue. My boss says I should do this, I should do this. But really kind of getting them to think critically, okay, I'm in this group situation, this is occurring, is this right, is this not right? And having that ability to go, okay, what do I do now? Do I just go along with it? Do I just turn a blind eye, or what it is? Do I revolt? Do I talk to colleagues? What's the next action? Of course, Tyler could probably tell you the whole literature behind of what the next action is. But I think that sort of being an effective follower and a courageous follower is extremely important. And be able to instill a few of those skills into students will go a very long way at not only have effective leaderships, because a lot of the skills overlap, but it also ensuring that you reduce the amount of bad leaders that are highly effective, but that inflict a lot of bad on society.
Yeah, it's a really good point, and brings us back to the graduate attributes in a way that if leadership is not just about respectful leaders, leadership is also about critical thinking. It's also about courageousness. So it's a really great point. Kyle?
Yeah, I have some thoughts following on from what Nelson and Jesse have already contributed. So on the courageous followership and leadership, I think there seems to be a tendency to like over prioritize the top position of like leadership. And I don't know, sometimes I see, there's all these programs out in the world that are all kind of like obsessing over leadership and, saying that like leadership is the goal. And I think that kind of contributes to a bit of a meritocracy that we're living in, and how we idolize the one person at the top. And I think, I mean, that can do one of two things: either cause everyone to just fight each other for the top position in wherever that top position is, or just become a buzzword and lose meaning. And I think what I think is really important is to preface it with what, like Nelson was saying, in, followership is a form of leadership as well. Alain de Sales does a great session on this, and that's why we all know about it in Liveris, and that's along the lines of our leadership development at UQ as well. So that's been a very great session in changing our mindset of we don't all have to fight for the top position, right? Everyone's a leader if you include followership as a form of leadership itself.
That's a really great point. Leadership is not a position. It's a way of being, and sometimes leadership means not being the leader, explicitly not being the leader.
Yeah. My personal philosophy on leadership is like, you can't have leadership without courage, and like it's almost synonymous to do things that you see, like you see a need and you have to, like, action needs to be taken, and you don't need a position to do that. And then following on from what Jesse was saying on clubs and societies, and I think like addressing the audience and the purpose of this panel as well, it's important. And also, like, with the how I've seen the academy develop and stuff, it's important to have like institutional teachings on leadership to help guide people to know theories and things that are really going to help you, and to be able to apply those things. But at the end of the day, my personal philosophy is like courage, like doing things that nobody tells you to do. Because if you're doing something that someone's told you to do, that's not really leadership. You're not being a leader in doing that. And so it's really important to have that like institutional aspect where you teach them the skills and the mindset, and then you allow for that space for them to do things that nobody tells them to do, and for them to find out, like what they're supposed to be doing, and to take action on things that people aren't telling them to do. And that's like clubs and societies is an amazing space to do that, because you get to, well, you're in a group of your peers and you're all equals. And the people get nominated into positions based on merit, and they're your friends. And it's more synonymous to society in general. And then you go to your course, and then there's a power dynamic, and there's your lecturer who knows 20, 30 years more of the thing that they're teaching you. And so you need both of the aspects if you're going to develop as an effective leader. Thanks for that, Amber.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, the big advantage of being at university, and what's really cool about it, is that you're exposed to so many different people who are all really passionate in different areas. So courses that I've had where you get to meet people and work with people in different majors and even different degrees has been really beneficial in terms of learning how to work with different people, how different people can achieve the same goal, that sort of thing. So I think that's been a really big thing for me, and something, that's just cool about uni, is that everyone's doing cool things. I like coming to uni because I go, I get to talk to people, see what they're doing. So that's been really, inspiring. And I think a really important thing is how can we bring different people together, whether in courses or in clubs and societies, or, if there's a third option.
Thanks so much, Amber. Last thought?
Just one thing we haven't touched on is like internships and vacation work. I
yeah.
thought a lot of my lecturers have encouraged us to do these things, and they've posted about internship opportunities like on Blackboard. And I think that's really helpful for developing leadership. I think that's where some of my leadership skills have developed the most at uni, was doing internships. So finding these internship opportunities would be really good to do as a lecturer, and advertising them to your students. And maybe in the lecture, sometimes my lecturers like remind us to submit these things before they're due, which is really helpful, and it feels like they care about our future.
Yeah, there's certainly a piece of encouragement and sponsorship, if you want, there that Nelson was reflecting on as well. All right, great. fantastic. Apparently, there's a lot of activity on Padlet, and so we'll keep it moving to make sure that we have some time to address some of those. I'd like to invite Richard O'Quinn, our lecturer in management and leadership, to come up and give us 5 minutes of reflections on specifically his thoughts on developing leadership development practice, reflecting on everything that the five of you have said.
Thanks, guys, for sharing your thoughts and experiences with us. I think it was hugely beneficial for me as well to hear what you guys are experiencing at various stages of your student life and before. A couple of things that really resonated with me is the focus on the experience of leadership that you all sort of touched on, whether that was originally in your family experiences from the beginning or work experiences early on or with school experiences. And, if we think about leadership, it's something that we can't go out and measure like a table or a rock or a physical being, right? It's created and unfolds in a social setting. And our identification of it is all based on our understanding of social aspect of what's transpiring in front of us. And so I think that sometimes gets masked, gets hidden from us, and we get position focused, or we get focused on a certain curriculum that says, I've got to do X, Y, and Z before I get to this stage of leadership or get to this qualification of leadership. So that's one thing that I valued in hearing from you all here, is that aspect of it. Another thing that struck me that still resonates me. My background is military before I came into academia. So much like many of you guys, before I went into the military, I didn't have experience in leadership. I played some sports as a kid. I maybe volunteered in clubs as a kid. I was in the Scouts, not the Duke of Ed, but a similar kind of thing, right? And I observed people around me just like you did. And I observed how they made me feel when they were guiding me or mentoring me or teaching me something new. And those are the experiences that I sort of tried to collect along the way. I tried them out in an Army context. Some of them worked, some of them didn't. But there were expectations there of what leadership looked like and what leadership was, how the Army tried to train it over time. And one of the things that really sticks with me now that I would challenge you guys to keep in mind is the idea that there are no born natural leaders. Just like there are no natural born astronauts or natural born chefs or natural born soccer players, right? These are all things that we learn and become through experiencing them. And I think one of the really important things that you guys described is the leadership and followership aspect of it. And that positionality that is so routine in our conversations around leadership can get us so focused, as you mentioned, and it's this meritocracy focused, striving as individuals to try to reach that position or this position, right? Or this title. That's another one, right? And I think in what we should probably more focus on is the activities around leading. Leading is something that we can do at various stages, at various ages, in various positions with different titles. And it's you can be doing it when following someone else. You can be doing it when no one's telling you to do it. You can be doing it when you're courageous and there's something counter to what others are doing around you, right? So I'm encouraged that you guys have these views already and these experiences. And I think we need to challenge ourselves as an institution and as a society to recognize the opportunities for broadening those experiences as you guys have described. And so not just for the individual, I think you said privilege, Jesse, but for others.
Great. Thank you so much, Richard, for those reflections. That's a perfect segue to introduce Aliisa Mylonas, who is going to elaborate a little bit on that last theme that Richard raised about the opportunities.
I was going to say probably not, because I was talking to Tim at the time, but thank you for coming today. I just really love hearing what your experiences have been. And I actually was meeting with a past person of my life who'd been a mentor and had done some coaching and leadership work with me 20 years ago. And he is still doing this in schools. And I love what you said about schools, the opportunities in primary and secondary schools. And he spends a whole year with year 11 students in one of the big state high schools that we've got here in Brisbane. But he's finding it like it's students aren't volunteering anymore and not stepping forward. And also the difference between like 5 males, 20 females stepping up. So he spends a whole year with year 11s developing leadership. So that's, you know, I don't know if that's something that you're noticing, the lack. It doesn't sound like there's a lack in the academy with, you know, maybe 1,100 people going for 10 positions. So that's quite different from what you're saying in your experiences and your memories of primary and secondary school. We come into tertiary, we still seem to have a lot of people interested. There just seems to be something out of whack there. But we've got this graduate attribute now about developing respectful leaders. And at UQ, we provide numerous opportunities. You all said that, heaps of opportunities. And the graduate attributes are can happen inside the curriculum and outside the curriculum and around the curriculum. And from what I'm hearing, a lot of what you've been doing has come outside the curriculum. And what we need to really focus on is what are we doing inside the curriculum. And I think there's a tension, because we have tensions with teachers who are saying, I have 13 weeks to get through all this content. And I wonder what your advice would be in terms of that sort of mindset. We've got, you know, a limited curriculum there, but I'm really mindful also, Kyle, of what you said. You came to an understanding of what leadership meant through an experience, and that there needs to be more accessible experiences and more smaller opportunities. What can we do as teachers, as educators we know we've got a lot of stuff happening around the curriculum. What can we do inside the curriculum that's going to spark that journey?
I guess I can kind of elaborate on my experience in Cambodia with Engineers Without Borders, because that was still quite a structured learning program. So we went into community, and our challenge was to find a problem in this rural Cambodian community and to come up with an idea to solve it that could then lead to like a PhD paper or something like that for further study. And what was interesting about that is that like every day there was a new leader chosen of the group, so that they could, you know, do like plenty of, you know, international trips and high school trips, do that kind of a thing. And they also cared a lot about, like, you could tell that like there was a lot of one time just genuine casual chats, being able to like tap into the knowledge that they have, and them being good leaders themselves, like showing the qualities that like good leaders have in guiding us towards the answers, is what inspired me the most. And then like also there was that, you know, I had my one day to be a leader, and I like put some practices that I was thinking about, and like it went well, and I got good positive reinforcement of that, and they said like that was really good kind of thing. I think those aspects of that trip could be replicated in some way, shape, or form in the structured learning and classrooms.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, there's certainly the knowledge acquisition piece is important, as will always be important, but there's also the opportunity to do something with it, the bringing it to life, that making sure that in our coursework we give students space to bring that to life, to take that leadership opportunity. And this is also where I like to think that blended learning gives us that opportunity, because there's a lot of knowledge acquisition stuff that can happen independently in terms of self-led leadership. to give that space.
I have to leave early, so I'm going to apologise in advance. Sorry, but if you could also, another point was about your clubs and societies. You talked about trying to get professors in to speak to clubs and societies. Can we get you in to speak into our classrooms? Because that to me is another opportunity that I think we can reverse engineer that thinking a little bit. Sorry.
And in our teaching learning committees. And
Can I leave on that controversial note?
all right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Aliisa is running over to the cultural capability session. So probably not running. So she'll crashing over. Yes. Nelson.
Yeah, just to elaborate on the previous question and Carl's point, I think a very untapped potential at university is, it depends the courses, but a lot of the time we do work, right? We submit something and then we get a grade and it's over. And I feel like that's such like a waste of resources there. Like I study economics, so I see resources and I see like there's actual labor there, there's actual quality work being done. And I've been involved in a few courses where the lecturers really go the extra mile. They bring in industry partners, they bring in NGOs, and they actually make us kind of build something for those external partners. And those courses are significantly more interesting because you're actually in the real world, you're actually doing things. Of course, there's limitations in first year. You don't have a very limited understanding about certain topics, and there's no doubt about that. Some courses it won't apply. But I think there's more and more courses where thinking a bit critically and trying to engage external partners could be a very interesting way to develop those leadership skills, if it's better communication, but also doing those little things, which for me represents a lot of leadership, that actually make impact, that don't go on your CV. It doesn't go, oh, I've done this extra little thing, but that really help you to become a more effective leader. And so I think for me, it's a total, I don't know why the universe, I'm sure there's some like insurance issue or something involved, but I really see it as an untapped potential for not more industry partners getting involved in coursework. And so that once we submit something and turn it in, it's not just something that gets marked and that's it, an end of story, but it goes on, it actually has an impact in the real world. And if the university really wants to create change, I feel like it should be able to harness that resource significantly better. And it'll also help to develop as a strong byproduct of leadership in its students.
Thanks, Nelson. I'm going to hand over to Tim now to reflect a little bit on what's coming through in terms of the themes on Padlet. I'd like to hear what our online and in-person viewers are thinking.
The fact that we've made these logistics actually work is astonishing. So just a couple of things. One is that we've had several questions on Padlet about those ideas about followership. So I'll be sure to let Alon know that you raised that, but also we have a couple of papers that he's written on that so that we can share to everyone that registered. So we'll make sure that those resources are available to people because it is a good piece of work that he's done there. One thing, so we also, Jesse, you and your parents got a shout out for having that fairly sophisticated take on privilege, which I thought was a really good point. And one of the things that has come up a couple of times in this is that idea of meritocracy. We keep using that word as though we can actually identify it and measure it, and a lot of times we can't. And one of the big concerns that I've got within UQ, and it's really apparent working with scholarship students, is we have these two categories: merit scholarships and equity scholarships. The second one is the most poorly named thing I've run across in my life, because those are people that have been in bad spots, they've struggled, and they're still achieving at a level equal to people that are coming from quite different backgrounds. And so I talked about it with Debbie Terry a while ago, advocating for a change in that language. And her point was actually they're demonstrating double merit just to even be in the conversation. So I think that we need to have, part of this bit about leadership is really thinking about how we talk about merit full stop, because it's not as straightforward as I think we often think of it. So that was also something that came up. In terms of questions, there were a couple that I think, well, first off, you typed at least one of them, right? Yeah. So do you want to ask them yourself? Here, I'll bring yeah.
Thank you. And thank you guys. It's been really great hearing all of your insights. My first was about mentoring and whether or not you have received like formal mentoring yourselves or have been a mentor for students or others and what that experience was like. As a student, do you think we can do it better here at UQ, and what would be your suggestions?
I know, I think for mentoring, CHES, the ChemEng Society, has really been where I've accessed that resource, because that's where it's been available, not through courses as such. It has been through the student societies. So I think probably it is something that could be brought more into courses, more in a formal setting, rather than something that's a bit more extracurricular. Because then, yeah, I guess the onus is kind of on the student to seek it out more. And for some people, they just don't have the time to be involved in student societies, that sort of thing. So if you can bring it into courses, that would be really good.
We were very lucky as part of the Liveris Academy to access some mentoring resources. And I can't believe I didn't mention it earlier, because having a mentor has been the most transformational thing for me at uni. My mentor, Dr. Katie Spirit, who we were matched with, runs a diversity practice in Melbourne. And coming into UQ, I knew that I wanted to sort of make a change. I had those big aspirations like many of us have here, but I'm not mathsy, I'm not sciencey. I had no idea how I was actually going to, play a role in solving so many of the challenges that we have facing every single day. And I met Katie, and she's working in the diversity and inclusion space, which is, I didn't even know that was an option of where I could take my writing skills or my people skills. And she opened up my eyes to a whole new world of, consulting, or there's different types of management that you can get involved in. All of these sort of pathways to aspire to that aren't as vocational as, you go and study medicine and you become a doctor, or, similar sort of pathways. And so having someone who bridges that divide of, you are a sort of scared, confused uni student who knows nothing in the grand scheme of things about the real world, and this is what the real world actually looks like, is so valuable. And I think, just to Kayel's point before about having tutors and leaders around you who are living the values that we are told to aspire to, for me, leadership has always been about feeling more than anything. The reason I wanted to be a leader as a child was because, I had just moved, as I said, and that was really scary and difficult. And the first time I felt like a leader was, coming to realize I didn't want anyone else to feel the way I did, and focusing on, inclusivity. And so I learned from a young age that you can be a leader just by, inviting someone into your group, or encouraging someone to share their ideas who's been a little bit quiet. And I had people do that for me and really appreciated that. So having teachers who are mindful is really beneficial. Yeah.
I know there's a few structured mentoring programs, like in the engineering faculty, they run like a big structured mentoring program, but I'm not sure how many people sign up. But the point I was going to make was that I think mentoring for me is probably better done when it's not structured. So there's just people available that like want to help you, because structured sometimes feels like it's a bit of a commitment. And I know, like myself and a lot of other students who are doing engineering, at least, like don't want that commitment at all. They would rather just study, especially in that kind of degree. So I feel like unstructured is probably what I would prefer.
So I think, so there are a couple of your other questions, and then some of the other ones that came through talked about different things like staff-student partnerships, student associations, mentoring, leading within teams. All of them had an underlying theme of, what can UQ do better to encourage students to participate in these kinds of activities? So I think that might be a good question to end on, is just what thoughts you might have about that in terms of encouraging broader participation in some of the really great activities that we've got available here.
I think, just quickly, as the other guys touched on before, lecturers have a lot of like influence like they're addressing like hundreds of people at once, like 3 times a week, like for 13 weeks. And everyone's like, most people are listening to the lectures. So I think it's important to advertise internships, advertise clubs in society, events, and encourage. You can literally just say like in a sentence, like, oh, I encourage you all to like find a mentor this week, like an informal mentor, because a lot of lectures just start the lecture, like deliver the content and then leave. But yeah, that's a lot of influence.
Yeah, that's great. So like integration of those program level or faculty level opportunities within the coursework to make sure
Yeah.
that there's exposure.
Yep.
Great.
Yeah, can I quickly add? It's kind of what you touched on before. I think people get a bit scared of commitment and how much commitment they need to put in. So being upfront about what, you know, a mentorship opportunity or something might require from you would, I think, encourage a lot more people to be like, oh yeah, I can do that, I can fit that in, but also offering flexible opportunities. So, you know, here's a quick one-off, you know, coffee date you might be able to do, and you'll have people that want to do that over like more of a structured time commitment. Yeah, and it's like that idea of accessibility. How can we provide a lot of different options of different time commitments and stuff, and just being open about what that commitment is, I think is
One, I'd say just make it cool. I think make
We're trying.
can elaborate. I'm sorry. No, I can elaborate a little bit. In reality, we and the people in the Liveris Academy already understand what it means to, you know, go out and do these sorts of events and enjoy them, and are a bit nerdy, let's be honest. A lot of people don't see the value in it, and especially us smart people as well, and see, you know, perhaps this event might not have as much influence as they'd be hoping, or think, you know, what's the point? I think if we drill up and really champion students as people who can have an influence and can do really exciting, incredible things, and can lead panel discussions or, you know, professional mentoring events that, you know, can connect people in their faculty, and can have make a real difference. And particularly position it to, you know, the broader world. And we have so many challenges that we're facing, you know, climate change and poverty, and there's so much going on in the world every day, and people feel very helpless to change them. And so I think if you put weight on these discussions, it's not just, you know, yeah, this is happening on Tuesday night, but this is your chance to leave a stamp on the world, to make your little corner of the world a little bit better. If we really drum that up in lectures, I think, yeah, that could be really beneficial.
Yeah.
And I would shout out Kyle, actually, because I think he should talk about this. Kyle led a really cool event called Hunting for Consensus, which was pulling together all the different political factions at UQ and having them debate and discuss climate change, looking for consensus. And that is such a bold undertaking, I think. And yeah, really important. Would you like to speak on that?
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Jesse.
Can't say no now. Huh?
Yeah. Well, yeah, the aim of the event was to change the discourse around the issue, because everyone talks about debates, and in the political context around decarbonization, it's just debate, and debates have winners and losers. And this pattern of behavior is causing partisanship and separation between people and delaying action. So yeah, the purpose of the event was, and the purpose of running the event every single year, and to try and like make that a legacy of something that happens at UQ, is to try and change discourse around it, and to allow people to visualize that like an alternative exists and that this can be done. And so yeah, we had quite good success, and the students are actually they enjoy coming to find consensus. And I guess to bring that back to something relevant, I guess, to this discussion, is to say that, yeah, if I can walk into a lecture and pitch that idea, just to say that this event is happening, and that it can have a big effect, and that people should turn up, then, you know, that's spreading awareness, that's showing people what leadership looks like on campus. And yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah, great. And I think that's a great point to wrap up on, in that it's not just about the opportunities, but it's also about the meaning and purpose it brings for those that might want to lean into those. So just wanted to thank everybody online and in person for attending and participating. As Tim said, we will circulate some information to the participant list for follow-up. Thanks to Tim for helping to co-facilitate this. Thanks to Kate, who's working behind the scenes, shaking her head, don't mention my name. Thank you to Richard and Aliisa for offering their insights into this topic. And most importantly, a huge appreciation for our 5 Liveris Academy students for taking time out of their busy study week in order to share insights with us. Thank you so much, the 5 of you. Good luck with your exam this year.